Professor Zuo, so why was it important? This was a trip that Kishida wanted to make before he stepped down. Why was it so important for him to visit Yoon?
First of all, this is a cornerstone of Kishida's foreign policy. He wants to mend the damage that between the two sides, the damage to the bilateral relationship caused by previous administration. So that's, I think that's a mark of his foreign policy. Firstly, facing the increasing threat from Pyongyang and even Beijing, Japan sees it as vitally important to have a strong partner in its neighborhood. So not only United States, but most of all, South Korea. So that's why I think Prime Minister Kishida wants to improve the country's relationship with South Korea, and it sees as critically important.
And did he want to, Professor Matsuda, try to lock in the progress that has been made so far so that it can continue?
Exactly. So, Japan and South Korea had a lot of ups and downs in its relationship. So a lot of observers were actually concerned that this momentum that's being gained through this trilateral defense framework actually might not endure leadership change in the respective countries. So from Japan's perspective, this demonstrates Japan's willingness that Japan was willing to make sure that this trilateral defense relationship will go forward, and it's committed despite the imminent leadership change in Japan.
Right. And in April, Deputy Secretary of State, the US, Kurt Campbell, actually said that both leaders deserve the Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts. Can you, outline for us, perhaps firstly, how bad were things before this rapprochement?
Right. I think one of the most notable examples here is probably 5 years ago in 2019, South Korea even threatened to withdraw from GSOMIA, which is a military intelligence sharing agreement between Japan and South Korea, which was a pillar of defense cooperation between the two countries. So, as you may know, Japan and South Korea has a lot of disputes, political disputes over interpretation of its history in the earlier half of the 20th century. And those disputes spiraled into a trade dispute as well in 2019. So it actually culminated into South Korea technically saying that they want to cut defense ties with Japan. And this happened in 2019. So you can see how in the past 5 years, this is a significant change in the past, that we're observing here in the past 5 years.
Right. And Professor Zuo, what were those factors, if we can say, in the past few years that enabled this rapprochement to actually happen?
I believe, first of all, the geopolitical environment is critical. Yeah, not only the threat from Pyongyang and probably Chinese mainland, but also Russia's invasion into Ukraine actually made an alert for Japan, and also the activities by Russian Navy ships around Japan has been increasing. So that also caused Japan to on a high alert about a possible collaboration among Russian, mainland China, and also North Korea. Right. And that's why it sees as critically important to have a strong friend, a strong partner in its neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that's why South Korea becomes so important. I think this is the first factor I want to highlight.
Was it perhaps even more than that? I mean, obviously the increasing threat, external threat, but was it also the recognition that their security was actually intertwined?
Yes, that is. I think that is also be appreciated by the South Korean government, the Yoon government. Yeah, because South Korea also sees the increasing aggressiveness of Pyongyang and the uncertainty in Beijing, and that's why people feel that. People in South Korea feel that they need to strengthen the country's collaboration with the United States.
Okay.
And the United States has consistently recommended South Korea to strengthen its cooperation with Japan.
But for decades now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Professor,
that's right. So just a decade ago, then Obama administration actually worked very hard to make the two form an intelligence sharing agreement.
Right.
I think their cooperation now is more than that.
Right, right. The one that they threatened to pull out of in 2019, but didn't quite because the US urged them not to. Professor Matsuda, Yoon has said that his greatest accomplishment to date as the leader of South Korea was achieving this rapprochement with Japan. Can you tell us about what you believe are the personal contributions of each leader to this rapprochement?
Right. I think President Yoon's part, he was very clear when he was inaugurated as president that he wishes to strengthen ties with the United States and Japan. Because his predecessor, President Moon, was more focused on rapprochement with Pyongyang. So it's a huge strategic shift that he's been clearly, explicitly signaling to the United States and Japan. And also on Japan's side, I guess it's really hard to attribute this momentum to personal leadership. However, it is also fair to say that this would not probably have happened under Prime Minister Shinzo Abe because he was considered as a conservative politician in South Korea, who he was not very well received in South Korea. So, and in fact, Kishida was seen more as a liberal, open prime minister as opposed to Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. So I think the fact that this happened under Kishida is a very natural. We can argue that this was possible under Prime Minister Kishida's reign.
Right, Professor Do, I'd like to get your thoughts on that. Do you think that this wouldn't have been possible under Abe?
Right. I think during Abe's administration, South Korea's president is President Moon, and of course, based on the past experience.
Yeah.
And
but in terms of the comparison between Abe and Kishida, it was Kishida the man that allowed this to happen.
Yeah, Kishida himself is another factor because Kishida has studied in the United States and he sees, he values his personal experience in the United States highly. And so that's why he can make that move very naturally. And also he has many friends in the United States. So it is also relatively easier for him to conduct that policy shift than Shinzo Abe.